Yeah, yeah, she had a buildup of fluid in her thoracic cavity. Operated. That's his
Check one, check two.
Out in the middle of nowhere.
Does the landscaping meeting?
Check one.
Okay.
Wait. Teasing. I think we're on, so you can do your thing.
Christine is conferring. How's Ruthie?
She's kind of okay, but they don't know what's going on. So they're going to keep her there for a while.
I just heard. I was so sorry to hear. But she's doing okay?
Yeah, she's
She at this hospital. If you need anything, you always make her run up and feed in.
All right, we're going to convene the May 21st meeting of the Ojai Arts Commission. We will start with the roll call, if you would, please. Mr. McClary?
Commissioner Golden? Commissioner Conrad?
here.
Commissioner Stobo?
Here.
Vice Chair Harmon?
Here.
Chair Addison?
Here.
Commissioner Lewis?
Here.
And Commissioner Balderman.
Here.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, as is our wont, is a call for public comment. I only have one card. Tony Thatcher, if you would like to come up to the podium, we'd be delighted to hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners. My name is Tony Thatcher. My address is 15275 Maricopa Highway, Ojai, California, a citizen of this county and not of the city. I'm here today with my museum hat on. I'm the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Ojai Valley Museum. And you will recall that the museum's National Historic Building is leased from the city of Ojai. Very briefly, the mission of the museum is to collect, conserve, explicate the history, art, and culture of things in the Ojai Valley. Recently, we've had some discussion on our museum board and with members of your commission, Roger Conrad, Michael Shapiro, and Mark Lewis, and also other members of the Ojai arts community, trying to identify areas of mutual interest. And I'll just mention three to be brief. We think it would be expeditious to inventory both the collections of the city and what we have in the museum with the interest of acquiring a more comprehensive collection of Ojai Valley art. The second item of interest, we think, is sharing storage and conservation efforts. The museum has some pretty good storage areas that we think perhaps the city art might be better stored in. We've also been discussing, and we need to discuss this further with the arts community, other venues to better display and explicate the Valley art and art scene that's available to our two organizations. Now, I'm not an art expert. I came to the museum as a history guy, so I'm trying to learn. And I think a joint effort by both of these groups makes sense. And obvious liaison person is a person that serves on both boards, Mark Lewis. And also Roger Conrad, of course, is our head exposition person. And so we think we would like to work with those two gentlemen and anybody else from your outfit that might be interested in exploring a joint way of at least those three goals and probably further goals. I'll have to say the caveat that the museum is in a bit of disarray because we're looking for a new director. We have some further interviews at the end of this month, and by sometime in June, I hope we will have such a person in-house. I'm willing to take questions if anybody has any.
Actually, according to the rules, apparently we're not allowed to respond or make comment. We just
Okay.
have to
Well-
thank you and appreciate your.
Well, with your
interest.
indulgence, Mr. Chairman, I'll put on one of my other hats.
Okay.
And on behalf of the 54 Ojai Pixie Growers, I'd like to present you with what we think is a work of art. And it's our newest.
Oh, it's great, yes. That is fabulous, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to note
Yes.
that Sergio Aragonis designed the, it is indeed an official work of art.
It is a work of art designed by an artist of name recognition and value, and so we will proudly add this to the city art collection as the first marker of our collaboration with the Ojai Museum and, of course, with the Pixie Growers as well. So thank you very much.
And may I add something,
At the very end
Michael?
of our meeting, also be in the commissioners' comments, I will be reporting further on the discussions we've had with Tony Thatcher about this possible development of a liaison between the two organizations.
And-
Christine, you have a comment?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to add that I believe that these are on sale at the museum.
They are Westridge Midtown,
West Ridge
and
Market.
the candy store, Kingston Candy, and at, what's the fourth?
Visitor Center? Are they at the Visitor Center? Oh, that
No, they're not at the visitor center. Anyway,
Yeah.
they're around town, yes.
Yes. Well, I'm not giving this one back.
And Friends Ranch, of course.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on. We will now move to presentations. Are there any presentations scheduled? I don't believe so. So we'll move on to item 4, which is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of April 16th. Are there any comments or emendations or corrections from members of the commission? Hearing none, I'm open to a motion to accept the minutes. Moved by Commissioner Balderman. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, I believe. Okay. This evening, we have some very important material to discuss. As anybody who's followed the work of the Arts Commission knows, public art has been a major concern of the commission, I think almost from its inception, one could say, and certainly in early years under the guidance of Barbara Hirsch and others, this has gained a great deal of attention, and the process has been refined considerably after much hard work by people like Barbara and, of course, Christine Golden, who's the current chair of that committee, to the point where a new ordinance was developed by the city that establishes a far superior process for evaluating and presumably then approving public art. So that having been said, I will now turn to Christine Golden, the chair of the very hard-working Public Art Committee, to present item A, which is the Ojai Valley Inn and Spa public art application. Just a brief bit of information. This is generated by the fact that the Ojai Valley Inn engaged in a massive project, including the renovation of swimming pools, and also, as you may recall, there was some controversy about the Neff Lounge. But the sum total of that was that they expended a certain amount of money, and as a consequence, the regulations of the public art ordinance fell into place, and the Ojai Valley Inn and Spa was therefore committed to a $32,000 expenditure. So this is derived from that.
May we start with Staff Person McCleary?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to distribute to the council before Commissioner Golden got into her CAPA report. We did receive this evening the requested breakdown on the budget materials. So unfortunately, we didn't receive these until today. The inn did send them to us, but for some reason, we did not receive the email. So when we got together tonight, we were able to solve the problem, but so it's just now getting to you now. but I just wanted to distribute that out to you so that you had that in front of you as Commissioner Golden was giving her report. So that should be coming around. And there's probably a couple extra copies there at the end if Commissioner Golden wouldn't mind setting them on the table there if any members of the public would like a copy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'll also ask Mr. McCleary to please, this is my first time out with a meeting with CAPA, much less chair, and also then bringing back a report to the commission. So if there's a better way to proceed or if I miss a step, please help me out. Okay, and for the public, I'm going to put this budget over here on the table, if anybody wants a copy. Expand the budget. I'd like to note that Randy Haney from City Council is here as a staff liaison to the Arts Commission tonight, and he grabbed a budget.
Council liaison, actually, not staff liaison.
Did I say staff? Thank
Yeah.
you. Council liaison, City Council. So, on last Friday, the CAPA, which is the Committee to Approve Public Art, convened here in the chamber. 5 members of CAPA sit, and those members are Mark Lewis, Roger Conrad, myself, Mac, help me with the last name.
Lojowski?
That last name from the Planning Commission, and then a member at large who was selected and approved by the Arts Commission, and that is former Commission member Mimi Moore, who has a very extensive background in public art, and at one point was the lead for the Denver Public Airport Public Art Program for the city of Denver. And so the 5 of us met, and we were presented with the proposal by Brian Skaggs. Brian, you want to just kind of wave? Brian Skaggs, who is representing the Ojai Valley Inn and Spa, and by the artist Pamela Grau, who is a member of OSA and was a former member of the Arts Commission, but due to the conflict of interest in being selected as the artist by the inn, had to step down from that seat. So just a little background. In your packet, Commissioners, you will see that you have all the materials that CAPA was given. So you will see the application materials submitted by the inn, which include a copy of how the 2% for the arts was figured, and then, of course, that is verified and validated by a city staff person. And then you will also see a record showing that the amount of the required 2% for the arts was actually deposited into an escrow account by the inn, which was greatly appreciated as a show of faith, as ground was broken before this process, and normally it would have been the other order. And then you will also see in this application packet a resume that details a little bit about Pamela Grau and the project she's done. I went to visit Pamela at her studio after that meeting, and she gave me this little booklet, which she wants back because she's only got a couple left. So I'm going to pass this around for anyone who is not that familiar with her work and would like to see some examples of larger pieces and where they have been installed. So I'm going to pass that around. Also in your packet, after the biography, you will see a statement which goes into a little more detail on the proposal for the inn. Basically, there is a piece that is going to go on the lobby wall. Now, the lobby of the inn is the first building that you see after, the parking thing happens, and then straight ahead is the lobby, and there is a very, very large wall that is raised up. It's like a cornice wall. I don't know what you call it. You call it a cornice wall? A cornice wall. And Pamela has been commissioned to do a triptych of sorts, a 3-panel piece on that wall. And at some point, if it's okay, may I call Pamela up to describe that, or do I need to do that, Steve?
That seems an appropriate request.
Okay, so at some point, not right away, but at some point I'll ask Pamela to come up and to tell you about the materials and the colors and all those things. Pamela was also commissioned for a second piece, which is going to be installed in an area just outside the restaurant and I believe adjacent or within proximity to the Neff Lounge. And that is a smaller piece, and it is a different design altogether, which again, I will let Pamela talk about those two different approaches to the piece in the lobby, and then a different approach and the one that is going to go on the restaurant wall. The commission looked, and you can see some pictures in the little folders here that you're given. And this one is nice because it shows what 3 panels might look like if they were hanging in a space like that, so it gives you an idea. However, this is not a photograph of the piece that's being installed, just to make that clear. And we had to figure that out, too. And there is a map at the very end which shows you the location of the artwork. The committee's obligation, the CAPA committee's obligation, is to be sure that the piece is accessible to the public for a certain number of hours, and we determined that it was. And in fact, as we went through the checklist of what needed to be submitted, everything was in due order. There were questions, however, about the budget, because the budget was really given as one number which some members of CAPA felt was more a cost than a budget. So we did ask that at this meeting, a budget that was more expansive be brought back, and that's what Steve McCleary has passed out to everybody right here. And we can all take a moment and take a look at that if needed. So, having said all of that, I would like to call Pamela up to the podium and Brian Skaggs up to the podium. And Steve, should we ask for questions from the commission now to go to them, or can they make a little presentation?
I think it would be probably appropriate to allow the applicant to make their presentation as they would see fit.
Good evening,
floor is
Commissioners. I'm Brian Skaggs, Director of Engineering at the Ojai Valley Inn. One of the things relating to the budget, and I think what led to some of the confusion during that CAPA meeting regarding the budget was once we worked with city staff, knew what the budget was for all 3 projects totaled, understood the 2%, 1%. The total was somewhere around $32,400, I believe, in which we cut a check immediately, put it in a trust account. In fact, they still have that money. But anyway, so we knew that we had 2 areas on property that we really wanted to put some nice art. So fortunately, we have a design firm from the San Francisco area, EDG, we call it Edge Design. Obviously, they're picking the furniture, they're picking the finishes, they're picking the colors. There stood a reason that therefore they would pick the art. Explained Ojai's art program to them. They took it a little step further, understanding what an artist community that we do live in. Bless you. It's okay. They were able to find Pamela fairly quickly, and really were enamored with her work to the point where they sent some of the samples, some of the photographs that they were able to find of some of her work onto Chicago, the owners, the Crown family, with a unanimous, yes, this is the right artist, let's commission her, let's get these pieces. So knowing that we had $32,400, and now speaking to the confusion with the budget, as Christine Golden said, that wall when you walk into the lobby is massive, it is large, it's going to take a large piece. Well, us not being artists and not really in the art business, how much does it cost to cover that size wall with art? So Ojai kind of we took a little different approach to it in going to Pamela with, okay, here's $32,400. What do we get? How much do we get? Now we understand that we could have added mounting of the piece, we could have added delivery of the piece, we could have added the insurance cost of the piece into that budget, therefore gotten smaller pieces from Pamela. We didn't. We are going to cover that on our own because we want these pieces in our lobby. We want her piece in the restaurant. So, other than that, I think Ms. Golden said everything perfectly.
So, and just because it took a while for me to understand what it was Brian was alluding to at the meeting, the Inn is actually spending money above and beyond the 2% for the arts by covering themselves the cost of the framing, the cost of any delivery of the piece to the Inn, the cost of insurance, all those costs that are quite appropriately part of the 2% are above and beyond what the Inn is willing to pay to have a local artist be showcased in a prime spot in the Ojai Valley, the Ojai Valley Inn and Spa. And I want to just go ahead and add that the EDG designer, Tim Hepworth, was here at the CAPA meeting and has told us that they are actively seeking other Ojai artists as they decorate and come up with how they want the design and the flow of the art in the inn to look and to welcome guests. And it was just so thrilling to hear that they're reaching out to our own folks for this. And I want to thank the inn for taking that road.
Absolutely, and to that point, one of the local, I guess, pottery folks is doing a lot of the dishware for this new restaurant that's now named, and I can let it out because it's official. Marvia has changed the name to Olivella, which again is a Chumash word. It speaks to some of the currency that they used to use.
And I'd like to add something to that too, really quickly. The designer actually asked me if I could introduce him to local artists, and we spent 2 days going to different pottery studios and to different, meeting different artists so that they could include them in this project. And that's not in the arts budget. That's above and beyond.
Well, I think it has to be said that this is really extraordinary, and it's sort of a dream come true, I think, for the Arts Commission, because instead of this being a imposition, it's a springboard for a real bonding with the inn, and the inn taking advantage of the extraordinary arts resources in this community. And I think I can say that the artists in the community similarly will do everything they can to reciprocate that sort of effort, because it really then becomes a showcase in the best way for an inn of the caliber that the Ojai Valley Inn and artists of the caliber that we have in Ojai. So congratulations and our thanks to you and the Crown family for this really very special effort.
Oh, thank you, and I know that they'll appreciate that also. We feel fortunate. They feel fortunate, and I know they've said it in front of the Planning Commission. They've said it in front of City Council. They have not been here personally for an Arts Commission meeting, but it very much is kind of a familial thing. The Crown family in Ojai. Yeah, I was born and raised here, and the inn means a lot to me. Means a lot to my family, of course, but. It's a great relationship, and we only intend to improve that.
Well, thanks.
He actually came to my house to approve the piece, so I was quite thrilled with that.
And they commissioned a piece from her that is going back to Chicago with him to hang in their house.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So exciting.
That's
So
the frosting on the cake. That's
is.
really
It
special.
is.
That's great. That's terrific.
So Pamela, do you want to just handle any questions if there are any, or would you
Well, I
like to
have-
talk first about the pieces?
Well, I
the
have
actual
two
pieces?
images. I didn't print things out for everybody, so you can pass them around. These are not the best images, but these are, this is the triptych, which you can
Okay,
see
and
there's
I have
that.
seen that in person, so I'll pass that right over here to Roger. Yeah. And by the way, Roger and Mark, if there's anything that you want to add from the CAPA meeting, please just jump in here if there's something that you think I haven't brought up.
Well, Mark came by and saw the pieces this morning, and Christine
Great.
came by. Barbara Hirsch came by. So, yeah, thank you.
It's a fun place to go visit. Go see Pamela in her studio.
Yes.
I have a question. I'm familiar with the ones, the circular ones.
Mm-hmm.
What, can you tell us a little bit about this one?
That one has lots and lots of silver balls on. They're not actually made of silver. They're painted. Everything I do is very much like a magician, making things look a certain way. But that one's made with iron pigment, copper pigment, bronze pigments that have been patinaed into a rust or into a green. so it's a big patina piece. It has to do with the flow of energy. I call it the nature of things. That's the official title at this moment. Because it has to do with sort of quantum chaos, how things come together with intention and then get tied up in a creative, impulsive change, that things evolve and little things set off other reactions. It's very hard to see in the picture what's going on.
3D.
It's very 3D, yeah. And
Very 3D, very textured.
very, very textural.
Any other comments? Then I think we need to move to the
If-
next step.
If there are no comments from, Steve, did you want, okay. If there are no comments or any other questions for Pamela, then at this point, where's that agenda? We will move to consider the recommendation from CAPA for final approval by the Arts Commission. Steve, do you read that motion that we made at this point, or do we just recap it?
No, at this time, you would need to make a new motion.
New motion.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll call for a motion from any commissioner that would like to make a motion to give final approval by the Arts Commission to the inn's fulfillment of the required 2% for the arts.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and I move that we accept the proposal. And also that was the CAPA's recommendation to you that we accept their proposal. as
Is there a second for the motion?
I second.
Go ahead.
We all second.
All right, Linda Harmon, Vice Chair, has seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question for Steve. Do I understand correctly that this is the final action as we approve this, as I expect we will? The next thing is just for the staff to certify it's actually hung as appropriate, and that's the end of the action? City Council has no role.
That is correct. This, at this point, if the Arts Commission were to approve this, then it would be up to the applicant then to follow through and to complete the project as described and approved, and then city staff will verify that. Happy to work with a couple members of the commission if you want to be part of that. But ultimately, staff would then verify that, and we'll report back to the Arts Commission once that's been completed, and then we can return the deposit to the inn. So,
Yes.
I do have a question on top of that then. So for example, like the breakdown of supplies and her, so that doesn't factor into anything. I mean, that's, my question is, that once we approve it, she's not gonna have to justify
No.
supplies.
that's correct,
Okay.
right. This is, as part of the application procedure, the artist is asked to provide a breakdown on the budget, and so that's up to this body to determine if they've done that sufficiently.
Any further questions or discussion?
Yes, I want to add, just because this is our first time out of the door on this, that once we have approved it, then Pamela will enter in a contractual agreement with the city.
Actually, it would be the inn.
With the inn?
Yeah, the
Not
inn.
the artist.
Right.
Okay, but the applicant being the inn.
Correct,
Okay.
right.
Good. Good for me to figure that one out. And then the CDD, the Community Development Director, becomes the lead agency for this project, and it will appoint a public art program coordinator to oversee the implementation of the artwork at the inn. Along with that, a maintenance plan will be provided, such as it would be. We did ask about maintenance as part of the application, and just so for all of you to know that there really is next to no maintenance for a piece like this, other than periodic dusting. It's impervious. We did ask questions about its permanency and all those things. That's part of what CAPA was doing. And then, once it's finished, we will get written verification, including a photographic documentation of the finished public artwork. That has to go to the Community Development Department, and then they are given the certificate of occupancy. So there are other steps to go, but none that really involve us directly.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that we get that maintenance plan before everything is signed off. And
you will all eventually get, we're still fine-tuning this. Now that it's been out for one run, we see some things that we need to correct, and then all of you will receive one of these so that you'll have a better idea of what this process is. And
Okay.
Brian, did you not say that there's going to be an opening that I think you said we could come to?
Well, of course, everybody in the public's always invited to the end. But as for these pieces specifically, all 4 of the pieces will be installed by a week from tomorrow. So come on by and take a look.
Okay. 8th of June?
No, it's
No,
the
it's-
30th.
Did you say 30th of June?
30th. 30th of May.
30th of May.
Any further discussion or comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is approved. Thank you very much. Very important project.
Thank you all.
Congratulations to the artist and thanks to the inn.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5, section B1, which again is the Public Art Committee, a report on public art fountains, operations, and maintenance.
And I would like Greg Grand, who is so wonderful, to agree to stay
Hi, Christine.
tonight and to talk to us a little bit about the Matilla Poppy Fountain and the Clough Vista Fountain. And I received a wonderful email from Greg, and I think if you just go over that for everybody, it was very informative.
Okay.
And
gonna
if
do
you'd
that?
start by introducing yourself, Greg, and your role.
Yes, my name is Greg Grant. I'm the Public Works Director for the city and the city engineer as well. And good evening to y'all. And yeah, Christine had, or should say Commissioner Golden had contacted me about the concern when about a year ago, it's actually last January, I guess, the governor initiated the first drought declaration. At that time, we were cutting back on quite a bit of watering around the city. And we shut off the fountain at Clough Vista as well as the Matilla Poppy. So there's some concern about that, whether or not, so I guess a few concerns that Christine had raised is, had we contacted the artist about maintenance of the fountains and so on. And we had not at that time, but I have since. And so the Matilla Poppy, it was nice to speak to the artist, was Sandra K. Johnson. And she was very helpful, and it seemed like the approach we were doing was what she did recommend. It was that you remove the hardness built up on the poppy periodically as we do, and then you wax the bronze to make sure. But of course, to maintain the patina, that's the difficult thing, I think, on that poppy, that bronze, is to get that patina. So we're careful about that. We also had removed all the hardness built up on all the Mexican pebble work and all that was throughout there. And she thought, I think Christine mentioned some concern that about reintroducing water that possibly could damage the fountain and so on. And so we talked that over, and it seems like that the fountain's pretty tough, and there's not a concern with that. And similarly, we talked to the 2 artists for the fountains at Clough Vista. So that's Paul Linhart and Tom Bostrom. And it was pretty similar. Paul Linhart, it was good to talk to him about a few things, because we have, I guess I call it the obelisk. I don't know what the real proper term for it is, but the basalt column that's got the light up at the top. So it was good to find out a little bit more how that operated and what we can do with that. But I think he was concerned the light was out, but the light is operating according to one of my guys that works on it. So I think it's working okay, and we're just taking a look to make sure that was being properly maintained. Got some insight on that as well. So that was all good. And he seemed to prefer leaving hardness to a certain level on the artwork. He thinks that builds character into it and so on. And so that one isn't as central to the downtown area. It's not seen quite as much, and just sort of different art. So we hadn't removed a lot of hardness, luckily, as well. So that's kind of the direction we're going on that fountain. And
Are you talking about the Omphalos stone, when you're talking about the hardness on the stone, that it's okay with him to have that scaling happen on that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not. Are you talking about the center stone where the water kind of
Yeah.
flows over? Yeah. He was talking about hardness in general. I think that forms around the
Okay.
fountain, that it builds character. So, at one point, if it interrupts the flow that it's supposed to go, it's worth removing it. But otherwise, he thinks it develops some character for it. Yeah, because some of that in the middle is more of like almost an algae, I think, that's grown onto it. The darkness, yeah. And then so I think I just mentioned the basic maintenance we'd already done, and then there's some question of whether we could use gray water. And the gray water is a neat idea, but without having a certified pipeline and so on around town is pretty difficult. Unfortunately, most of the wastewater from the Ojai Valley goes down Ojai Valley Sanitation District, which is way down grade, which has certain advantages, but getting back up here is the difficult part. So if they, maybe with a drought, we'll end up with some kind of a pipeline back up here. But at this time, there's no easy way to do it unless you use a truck or something like that, which would generally negate most of the benefits. And I think there was another question there too, that about how come Libby Fountain was not turned off. And I guess jokingly we call Libby Fountain the public pool sometimes for Ojai. That's sometimes it's kind of the heavy use area. The park is used a lot in the playground, and a lot of kids get over there and play in it and cool off and that kind of thing. So it's just central to that park. So it seemed to be the one that we'd made a call to go ahead and leave on, but certainly open to any kind of suggestions or recommendations from the commission. And if there's and certainly I think one, if nothing else, a good learning experience here. I think Commissioner Golden was mentioning, can we expect to be better informed in the future? And certainly that sounds like a good idea. So I appreciate understanding, and Commissioner Golden has given me a nice book which has a lot of the artwork around the Ojai Valley, and so I'm more aware of where it all is and things we can do to take care of it as best we can. I think in general the city is in kind of a mode where we're improving maintenance of all the facilities around the city. So the good news there is that we're keeping an eye on things. I think after the recession, things were kind of going downhill a little bit, so I think they're going up at this point. So I'm glad to answer your questions.
I'm very pleased to hear that you worked with the artist in both cases, that you contacted them and conferred with them, so that we're in that important way reassured that you have your eye on those projects and that your focus is driven by what the artist feels should happen. So that I think is exactly what we wanted to hear, and I again applaud Christine for having raised these questions. Appreciate your reassuring us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I thank you so much, Greg. It's been a pleasure to meet you and to talk to you, and I know you're reading that book from cover to cover. It's The Fountains and Sculptures of Ojai. It's a nice little thing by Elise de Poit.
You did give that to me, right? I don't know that.
I did give that to you. It was a little gift.
Better get out of town while you can.
Greg, she's not giving you the lunchbox, though. That's why.
But you're not getting the lunchbox, no. But thank you very much. And I do keep my eye on. I feel an obligation to keep my eye on the public art of Ojai, not just those two pieces, but there's another one that is in disrepair right now. So I'm a little like a dog on a bone. I'm a lot like that. So you'll probably be hearing from me again.
Yeah.
We try and keep her under control, but
We appreciate it. There's a lot of things to keep an eye on, so it reminds us of everything going on too, I think,
Greg, I'd also like to thank you on behalf of the museum. You mentioned that you had been taking care of the city facilities, and we used to have to take care of the yard ourselves and make improvements to the outside of the building, painting and things like that. And your guys have been really great, and we so appreciate what you're doing to help keep us open.
It's good. I think one of those great things where the city council and the city manager are working together to dedicate all the money to the repairs, like to the roof and a lot of the facilities over there.
Right.
And in the long run, it makes it easier for us to maintain it, right? We're not chasing cracks and chipping paint and leaks in the roof and all that. Yeah.
Right.
How's the tarp on our roof? Is that one got it?
Thanks.
okay, thank you
Thank you very much.
Let's move on to the next item, please, which is the Libby Playground renovation public art component.
Yes, I think that, Greg, you're
Think
going to
of
stay
Greg,
for that one
you
as
got
well. And Steve.
Steve, did you have anything you want to mention, or should I take that? Yeah.
It's all yours, Mr. Grant.
Okay. Well, good evening again. And hopefully you got a chance to look at the administrative report and so on that goes along with this. And essentially, the City Council has awarded a contract to Play by Design, who specialize in custom community design build playgrounds. So if you've been up in Santa Barbara at the Alameda Park, I think that's the one that kind of got us involved in this whole project in the first place. They have a custom built design playground up there. It's about 25 years old. And it's all made out of nice redwood material. And it's a very interesting playground under these beautiful trees and a beautiful park and so on, much like Libby Park has the potential to be. And so what they specialize in doing is going out and getting input from the community. They're working with the city, helping us develop and get that input, and that's part of what tonight is really. And then you can see on the administrative report, I put a few dates in there, but they'll be in town next week. And on May 27th, they'll be at the Ojai Valley Women's Club from 4 to 7 p.m. trying to get input from the public. So we're trying to advertise that in the newspaper and other modes. For instance, last weekend there was an open house at the Boyd Center. We advertised it. And this weekend the commissioners from the Parks and Rec Commission will have a booth out there as well, and they're going to be pushing it. We're putting up a kind of a poster and informational little mini kiosk, I'll call it, over there that'll help get more information. So we're going through that to get design input, and that next day after the outreach, they'll be going to the Topa School and working with all the kids. They've already got information where they can kind of design and sketch their own ideal playground, and they'll take all this information up front. They're getting it as it comes in and try to get ideas and be inspired on what this playground will be like. So the next day they'll finish their concept design, and they will unveil it to the public at about 6:30 p.m. over at the Ojai Valley Women's Club. And so after that's unveiled, there'll probably be some comments from the public, I would assume, in Ojai for sure. So we can expect that. And for the next few months, we will work on iterations of that design and addressing any kind of concerns that might come up. It might be color, height, mass, whatever it might be about the playground people are concerned with. And then we will move into the construction planning phase, and that'll kind of be concurrent, just starting to getting the materials together and get the volunteers, because the community build means that the volunteers are building it. There's no construction company coming in to do this. Just the consultant that's kind of an architect, designer type person, and they'll help supervise all of the volunteers working on it for that week. The 1 week it'll take, and that's what it takes to build it with all the volunteers. There'll be a lot of volunteers. And we can really thank the Lions Club for stepping up in the lead on that. They volunteered to pull everyone together and assure that we've got everybody we need for that week. So they still need a lot of people, so anybody's interested, we appreciate your getting your name and information. We'll put you on a list and make sure we contact and keep you informed. So we expect construction to occur in mid-October to November. We haven't quite picked the exact week yet. Whether it's before Ojai Day or after, we're still working that part out. And so as far as what I was hoping to get from you would be some input at this meeting, as well as a volunteer that might help our design review committee. I don't think it'll be too burdensome to be on that committee, but the first meeting would be next Wednesday night after we get public input, to kind of go over what that public input was for an hour and talk with a designer about it, any kind of concerns that might be there. So that's part of a question we have here. And then I was hoping that, and we'll have a full design review committee with different people on it from other commissions, the Parks and Rec Commission, and also a few from the community as well, from service communities. So at this point, I was hoping you could take a look at the attachments that were on the back of the administrative report. And one of these was, the first one was Exhibit A, and that's a cross-section in which we drafted up. And it's interesting, I think some people were concerned that the playground could get too large, because there was some talk about, a lot of kids like to go up. I think you might know Soul Park has the old rocket over there, which is very popular. So some concern we're going to build a rocket and that it might approach start competing with a bell tower over at the post office and so on. So there's, the idea of this is just to give some scale to what's out there. And you can see the 61-foot scale of the top of the bell tower. That does include the spire on it. And I think one of the important things too is there's a huge wall to the post office. It's not fancy architecture by any means, that big blank wall that faces the Libby Park. And that is almost 20 feet tall. And the existing playground is kind of in the 13-foot range, and it slopes down a little bit that way, not too much, but a few feet. And so it kind of gives you a feel here for what the actual scale of the trees are and the fountain. And just gives, I think some people even felt that, the picture on the back in picture C, I'm sorry, I have extra copies. Anybody want any copies? Everybody good, yeah? And so there's some photos in the back that take pictures from the arcade out in the street to get a feel for whether or not you could ever see it from that angle. And I think you'll find because the pergola and so on is there, you're looking up at an angle like this. So you're really landing up. It'd be extremely difficult to see much in the back. And let me just grab one here.
Can I ask you a question? What's happening to,
Microphone.
oh, I'm sorry. I have a question about what's happening to what's there now. What's going to happen to that when you take it down? Is that going to be repurposed somewhere? Which I would hope.
I think so. I'm sure our attorney will get involved somewhere, but that's the idea. There's a lot of interest from quite a few groups, as well as even possibly moving it over to Sarzati, parts
Yeah,
of it to
because that has a
Sarzati.
very small playground over there. My grandkids use it. And
Mhm.
I just think it would be sad if it ends up in a dump instead of being reused.
There might be certain parts of it that are
That
kept
aren't
there as
safe.
well. We can repaint possibly some of the swings and so on, and the little spinner that's pretty new
And even
anyways.
if it wasn't repainted, it'd be better.
Right.
I mean, it's very small. It's cute, but it's really small.
Yeah, so it might go to Sarzati, it might go to other organizations in the valley, and I guess even if nobody else was interested, they have connections with some overseas, less fortunate countries that would be interested in it.
Well, I know they do soccer and baseball and softball there for all the older kids, and all the little kids, that would be nice to have that for them to play on, so.
Okay, yeah. So I think I'll jump to the last attachment C there, and those were what I just mentioned. There's the one shot that is kind of from the pedestrian crossing at the arcade, and it's hard to see. You can see how low it is back in there. And I think I heard some of the original complaints when this one was put in where the colors are bright and there was some concern. Nowadays, most of these, in this particular design approach, is use recycled lumber, so it's usually it's muted natural colors.
That was another question I had. Are the materials sustainably harvested or repurposed? So the answer is yes, right?
Yes, for the custom-built portion, for sure, it's all recycled lumber.
Great, thank you.
One of the concerns of the old parks, even the one up at Santa Barbara, even though it's 25 years old, is that all the lumber takes a lot of maintenance, the raw wood and so on. So this is all recycled lumber for that reason.
So I have to ask, are they using any, I hope not, but the tire, any tire components for the padding on the ground or anything? Do you know what I'm talking about?
There was some interest for sure in going to chipped rubber for the ground, and I'd actually just checked into that, and I guess there's research going on by the state right now. There's some concern about emissions from degrading tires and so on.
And they also have pieces of metal and all kinds of things that actually have caused injuries to children, so.
I don't think there's any easy answer to the material, because I know most people, the sand is not ADA compliant anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So using the wood chips is the ideal cost, and it's ADA compliant. You can actually get a wheelchair and over it pretty well. But I've heard a lot of complaints about kids getting the kind of splinters and so on from that. The other option now is this rubberized, poured in place rubber, but it's very expensive. It would blow our budget, and it's expensive and difficult to maintain as well, and it's very hot. Yeah.
It's not permeable either.
It's got issues, right? So, but I was really hoping the rubber would work, but I was just talking to somebody about it last week, and that was a trend, but now somewhat pulling back while the study goes on. Yeah. Okay. So I think maybe the only other part that I didn't cover was this one aerial photograph, and that shows, you can see the curb outline pretty well of the playground. And on the north side, there's a wood chipped area where the old tree was that was quite a fuss like 15 years or so ago. And there's a smaller tree there coming up slowly. But we could expand into that area a little bit, and there's some talk about possibly expanding out. It's not too much. I would roughly put it in the 1,000 to 1,500 foot range. But it's away from the grove where some people are concerned about not expanding and making sure we don't go in that direction.
I'm assuming you have someone that did the landscape on the park, like Kathy Nolan or someone involved in placing it so it doesn't interfere with any of the existing trees?
Exactly, yes. Okay. I'm on the tree committee as well, so that's, and unfortunately there's a few trees right next to the playground. We didn't intentionally do that, but are very stressed. We're trying to save right now. But so I think that was kind of the basic information, so appreciate any kind of discussion or input you can have, and a volunteer for the design review committee if you're open to that.
The burning question for me is what the cost of this project is now.
Well, that would be question for Greg in terms of what our estimate cost. But,
Approximate budget is 300,000. We're still working through our budget for next year. 300,000 includes the designer and all of the materials, no labor.
So the one thing that we haven't touched on yet, and maybe we were going to get to it, is to talk a little bit about a potential public art component for this.
Right.
Mr. Grant and the city manager and I have had some discussions about it. And again, so just got to hear me out here for a second before you get excited. The project doesn't technically require a public art component. However, we're recommending that it has a public art component. So I think part of what we'd like to engage with the Arts Commission, again, in the vein of this being a community design build, we wanted to at least have start with a discussion with the Arts Commission to see if it might be feasible to work with members of the commission to engage the artist community to develop some concepts for public art for that area, and then maybe once we can develop some, and then maybe at the same time we also need to talk about what we might be able to afford in terms of a budget for that. And again, that might depend on what the piece is or how we might be able to integrate it into the design. So I think until we have a little bit more of an idea in terms of the design and our final budget, we're somewhat chasing a moving target here. But I think we have some time to try and figure something out. And again, ideally, it'd be fantastic if we could, identify a project that we can integrate nicely into the project. Maybe we can get some volunteer help from artist to artist, either the design or the fabrication component, and then get that in there.
Steve, can you back up a little and help me as I learn all of this as to what it is that disqualifies it from automatically being
Any city project, you can simply.
any city project at all?
Right, but we're not taking that position.
Yeah, I got that. I just wanted to know
So
what
the
the thinking was so that I
$300,000
understand. Yeah.
$300,000 threshold, and again, I'm not even sure if we're going to reach that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if it's $299,000, we're saying we're gonna try to work a public art component into it. Same if it was over $300,000.
Thank you.
So,
We certainly applaud that take from the city.
yeah,
Now,
the
would it-
challenge is trying to put this project together with the existing budget, and of course we're still working some other ends on that.
Would it,
There's
would it
also a
not
timing
be,
challenge, is there not, given the fact that you're hoping to install this coming October, November, and we won't have a final design until several months from now, and we can't really.
Well, we'll have a preliminary design at the end of the month.
Oh,
Okay.
Preliminary design next week, a rough
Right.
concept, yeah.
Okay, so from that point, then, we could engage with the artist community and see what could be developed.
so let me go back to where I was. Would it not make sense for the commission and for the city to follow the same procedures it has and that have been written into code for any public art project, rather than do something completely different? Because part of the reason for this code and the guidelines is to establish a certain procedure that is fair and that covers all the needed steps in having a public art piece installed. So if we did that, which is what I would recommend, that we follow what we have, what's been written, we did that when we did art for the Libby Bowl renovation with the Trimpen sculpture. We did that procedure when we did the skate park wheel
Right.
for the skate park. So we have a procedure to follow. And I think it behooves us to keep that same procedure in place, which means that we would be convening a public art jury. So just throwing that out there, because I've thought about this, but I didn't know exactly where to go with it.
I'd like to also
Well-
interject too that a lot of times there's an art committee as part of this. There's a steering committee and there's subcommittees. And a
That
lot
would
of
be the
these, they
committee.
usually have an art piece that they do as part of the community. They'll take tile and do mosaic art and so on as an entry piece to it. And even, I guess at what point you call it art, but they usually try to integrate some kind of features of the community into the playground itself. For instance, I don't know whether it would look like the arcade or the bell tower or the Topa Mountain, Topa or whatever, but some feature like that is integrated into the piece as well. It can be. This is all open for design, but there's
Right.
a lot of room.
Commissioner Haney, you have some comments you'd like to make at this point?
Council member.
Councilman, sorry.
It's okay, I've been called worse. I just wanted to touch on the fact that Libby Bowl has an art piece. And that fountain is probably the focal point in the center of that facility. And I don't know, I'm just speaking as a citizen. I don't necessarily know why we would need a competing piece for a playground area. And that's technically what we're doing, is we're trying to renovate the existing area that is a play area for children. I don't know what we could do as far as an art piece unless it's something that a child could climb on. So
Well-
that's all I'm trying to say when I talk to that. We already have something there.
Can I address that, though? Because there is some wonderful public art that is specifically designed to be part of playgrounds. And in fact, I had sent to Steve and a couple other, I think to Sonny Rylander, and all the commissioners can look this up on YouTube. It's a piece up in Montreal called 21 Swings. And it's just this incredible swing set that is a piece of art, but that you can climb on it and swing on it.
Well, all I'm saying is.
So there
there's-
are things that wouldn't
And
compete
I'm not going to
with the
disagree with that.
fountain, but would.
What I am trying to say, though, is there's a limited budget. There's a goal intended, and there's going to be a lot of wants and needs from the community. Like, one of the driving factors behind this renovation were shade covers. That was one of the driving, we've been approached, I don't know how many times, about getting shade on that play area. So again, there's gonna be a lot of wants and a lot of needs and a lot of money that's gonna have to be generated. So that's all I'm trying to say, is when we talk about public art, let's think about how and the when and the where and what can be achieved without impacting that play area in a negative way.
I have a
Seems to me that we have one possibility, and that is to build on the very nature, the heart of this project, and that is that it's a volunteer project. And it seems to me it would be appropriate for us, the Arts Commission, to call on the arts community to participate in this project and to volunteer their contribution. And if that leads to someone proposing something that integrates with the design that's arrived at and that falls within budgetary constraints and doesn't add to the budgetary burden, that, it seems to me, could be a valuable contribution.
That's what
See, Michael, I'd call that a win-win.
And that's
Yeah, I
what
would
happened,
too.
that's what happened with the skate park.
Yeah, exactly. Skate
The
Park
wheel.
then serves
Ted
as an
Gall
example.
stepped up and basically
Right.
donated his time,
Right.
and he's a very.
But a public
very-
jury was convened to walk through
went
that
through
entire
that.
process. And
It
a
was
public jury
for-
includes members of the public, obviously,
For
from what
Libby
it says.
Bowl,
So I
but-
would like to recommend that a public jury be convened. And I'd also like to nominate Roger to sit on the design panel, because Roger has that kind of background where blueprints and things like that are not foreign to him.
Yeah, I've actually designed playgrounds in the past. I'm an industrial designer by trade, and
So he'd be
I did
perfect.
one for the city of Burbank, and I've done some modular ones that have gone all over the world, actually.
Sign them up, Greg.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent recommendation, and if you're willing to do it, Roger, you're on. So Roger will be the Arts Commission representative, and will lead the charge in terms of input from the Arts Commission and from the arts community.
That's
And
great.
And Roger, being a member of the Public Art Committee here on the Art Commission, that will integrate what he brings to bear with that particular committee.
I wish we'd known that before we hired the consultant, but yeah, okay.
I have one question, too.
And Commissioner Conrad, if you can try to remember, that'd be next Wednesday night at 7:30. Okay, terrific.
I have a
Yeah,
question
thanks.
for
I'll send a note too.
Mr. Grant. You mentioned that wall on the post office. Is that a federally owned building or a city-owned
I
building?
believe the Ohio Civic Association owns the building.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's another opportunity. You were talking about a mural on the theater. Well,
Not a mural. We never said mural.
okay, all right, well.
Just public
There's a
art.
wall there, too, and it's a long wall, and it's a blank wall, so I would suggest
All right,
maybe
we'll
we
go
can
look at that, Linda.
too.
Thank you.
Possibility.
I'll go look at that.
I really appreciate the idea if the Arts Commission could pull together, because it is hard. I think sometimes these playgrounds are inspired by the community. It's kind of a groundswell of community support to build it around a disadvantaged child or something. And in our case, the city's moving it forward, and it's pretty hard for us to get out there and really make that kind of thing happen. So if there's some core group of artists that'd be willing to take that on, that'd be terrific. I know the guy who's been really helpful is, Richard at RTK Tile has done a lot of donations around the city for his tile work and things, and that kind of fits in if you do tile work as you enter that area.
Sure.
But still, there's a million other options that could be done.
You now talk.
Well, you have a strong representative from the Arts Commission to work
Yes.
with you, and that's excellent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic.
And just to make it clear, if I could, Chair, we, whatever's developed, we would be looking to bring to the Arts Commission for their approval before we rolled
Of
it
course,
out. So
of course.
we will definitely make that part of the process.
Yeah. Right. This is iterations going on, so I'll be back showing you what the design is and getting your input and trying to make sure we
We'll
get
think
that
of it as a
involved.
partnership, if that's okay with you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Greg. Appreciate your time tonight. All right, we now have an update on the Ojai Playhouse possibility and a meeting with the Historic Preservation Committee.
Okay, is that me?
It's going to
you.
be you, Raj.
We got more handouts?
Yeah, more handouts.
Yay.
Yeah, let's see, I got
Thank
more
you,
here.
sir.
No, there's more.
I've seen some of these. These are really cool.
Some great old photographs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I gave you these handouts, and I thought I'd give you a little bit of history and then talk about our meeting with the Historic Preservation Commission. The top picture on here was taken in 1916, but the theater was actually built in 1914, and it was called the Isis Theater, which would be a very unfortunate title for a theater now. But there ended up being quite a few ISIS theaters all over the country, and it was born in the time when they did things like Grauman's Chinese and the Egyptian theater in Hollywood and all those things, and they wanted to make it exotic. And so Isis is an Egyptian princess. And so anyway, it's gone through a lot of areas. One of the things I wanted to bring up is that there really isn't a real history like other buildings. For instance, the museum was built in 1918 and has pretty much looked the same. It's been added on to, but it's pretty much the same thing. But the theater has gone through a lot of incarnations. 1920, you'll see a portico that's across the front of it. 1950, which is probably my favorite time for this theater, they had the ticket booth out in front, and then two doors on either side, and then an arcade over the top.
A couple more. Oops. Thank you.
And then in 1953, we have a night shot that you can see with the Bobby Soxers and whatnot there. 1950.
My wife you're talking about, please.
Right. 1954, it had an iconic Ojai sign up there. And then in 1978, it was purchased by Wayne Glasgow, and he renovated the theater in a Scottish theme. And you can see, unfortunately, I didn't have a color photograph, but at the top you can see he renamed it to the Glasgow Playhouse. And there's a Scottish tartan behind the back of it. And he was quite a notorious person. You'll find also that he changed the facade to a brick area in front. And then, let's see, when...
Don't forget what it says there.
Oh, yeah, this is also very important. Thank you, Christine. It says, join the mural majority, not the moral majority, but, and this was back in the 70s, really, kind of a thing. And they were wanting to make a mural at that time on the building, and that fell through. Since I've been in Ojai, there have been other efforts to also do this, and so far none of them have come through. The Alwar family bought it from, well, actually, Wayne Glasgow lost the theater, and so the Alwar family picked up the pieces, and somewhere at this time they took the brick off, and then we have the current facade that we have at this present time. And of course, you can see the picture of the Alawar family, and they're in the second arch of the arcade. And so you're looking at the building as it was on that particular day, and that's where we're thinking about putting the mural or whatever other type of configuration that we come up with at that particular point. I presented these same pictures to the Historic Preservation, and we were kind of wondering what kind of reception that we'd get, but I would say generally it was a very positive reception, and that they basically were willing to partner with us to at least investigate the possibility of doing this and going to the next particular step. And Mark Lewis was also there, if you have any comments about the meeting.
Yeah, I would say that there was basically a positive reception, although I'd also say there's a certain wariness that I would detect in the, what would you call it, the historic preservation community, about what exactly may be proposed to go up there, and so they'll be watching and involved,
Mm-hmm.
and I would expect that there might be, I think it'll be a somewhat complicated process, but we'll find out how it proceeds.
Yeah, and we invited them to have a member on whatever
It'd be a
review
public art
committee,
jury
you know.
again.
Yeah, as part of the public art jury, and we certainly, and we're also interested in getting a lot of public comment too on things that we might do with that. So it's really wide open as to the possibilities. So I think in terms of that meeting, we have a mandate to at least go forward and work out some kind of proposal.
I should, just to point out, I think that's not a landmark building, but for various reasons, it'd be, I think, difficult to get anything done without if not formal, informal cooperation of the HBC.
Exactly.
Well, that's my question. There's been questions about doing this for
Is your
40
microphone
years.
on?
Yes, there's been questions about doing this for 40 years. Why do you think, how do you think the temperature's changed, that this is going to move forward?
Well, it's kind of an interesting time since the theater was almost destroyed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's coming back, and it's kind of a fresh time to look at it. It's been something that's been talked about for a long time, and you never know, maybe people will prove to be against it, but we're willing to pursue it and see what could be done. It's one of the most dramatic places in Ojai to do something like this, and other than that, it would be just another blank wall. You can see in some of the pictures, like in the 1916 one, they had vents on that particular side, and that was because they didn't have air conditioning. So, they needed to, in the hot summers, be able to still use their place there. So even those have been covered over, because obviously with air conditioning, you don't need them. But it is just a blank wall, and so it may be right, maybe it's not the time, but if you don't try, you won't get anywhere.
Also, I'd point out that Wayne Glasgow's main claim to fame before he came to Ojai was as a softcore pornographer. So I think if he didn't get a mural built, that doesn't mean someone else can.
Right.
And I'll just flesh that out by saying that the
Flesh
next.
that out, oh, please.
Ba-bum-bum. By saying that there are so many steps that the Public Art Committee will be working on, including whether or not it's necessary to have a mural ordinance. And I hate saying mural because mural is just one possibility. Then we would be looking at whether or not we would recommend to all of you that we use a public art consultant to help us in this endeavor. would help us get requests for proposals. It would, public art expert would help us convene an appropriately populated public art jury. There is that component of polling the public at some point, although that's hard to do without knowing what it is you're asking them to say they want or don't want. So there's so many steps in our next move, and we would have done it at our last meeting, but our last meeting was so long. But it will be to make a list of all the things that we have to do, and there's so many things that have to be done before we ever talk about whether it's going to happen or not.
Well, one of the things I would urge you to consider as you make that list is to try and at least estimate what the costs of
Yeah,
each component
cost.
would be.
That's right.
Because you're proposing something that is, I think, ipso facto going to be expensive, ranging from all of the steps that you've just outlined and the hiring of consultants and such, and then the actual cost of the work itself, including installation, insurance, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And I think that's a major issue. I think that's something that we're going to have to grapple with, whether we're going forward with this in the hope that we can generate public funds to support it, or whether we're going to go forward in the hope that we can mount a community funding drive, or seek grants or some combination of all
Or
of those.
use the public art funds that were set up for this purpose.
Yes, if that's sufficient. It might be
And
sufficient.
if we wanna do it.
seed- Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think
All
that
questions.
integrating cost and potential sources of funding
Yeah.
from the outset is really important.
Can I ask a
Lot of work.
question? Did we use a public art consultant for the Trippin?
Yes, we did.
Who did we use?
Gee, I'd have to go back and ask, but there was a public art consultant. Yeah. Public art consultants are incredibly worth their money
Sure.
because they handle contracts, they handle installation, they make sure that everything's supposed to happen, a good one, that everything is supposed to happen in a certain way, and they just take care of all that stuff. So we probably, the three of us, will call from the list that was created in the guidelines. There's, I think, about 12, and we'll split it up, and we'll come up with questions that we'll ask each one of them, and then come back to you with a recommendation. But that's even after, do we need an ordinance? And things like that. So there's just, there's making that list of steps, and then there's ordering that list of steps, but it'll be fun. We'll do it.
Okay, well, it's a work in progress, and I
Yep,
think
a
that's
work in
what
progress.
we can say at this point. And thank you for all the work. It's a lot of work, but it's a project worth investing in.
Yep.
Let's go forward now to item 4 and B, and this is a staff update, I presume from you, Steve, principally.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just have a, excuse me.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Sorry, I just have an oral report tonight. We'll try to get back on track with giving the written reports from community development. I'm sorry, there's just been a lot going on the last month or so. No significant changes there in terms of any new projects coming in. I know the one that was on the list, the wild tennis, and just to bring you up to date on that, I think I'd let the commission know that it had been appealed, but nothing to do with the public art component. And so that appeal is scheduled to be heard, I believe, on Tuesday for the city council. So assuming that project goes forward, the applicant's well aware that they have a public art requirement there. And I think you probably have a little more you can report on there.
And I have a little more to add to that.
There you go.
Because I met with Mark Weil at his request and gave him the public art program guidelines. And he walked me around to the site where he is thinking the public art could go. And he really did not have a very good idea of what was required. So, I handed him the book, and we'll see where it goes. But he's more positive than what I expected, I'm happy to say, and very open to understanding, and that because of the timeline, he is now required to do the public art piece. So I have a lot of hope for that, and have given him some ideas along with the ideas that he has.
I just wanted to thank Chair Golden for going above and beyond and doing that. It's very helpful to staff, and I think for the whole process to have somebody who can meet with the applicant and walk them through the process
It's fun.
and walk through the site and talk about ideas and concepts, and somebody that they can bounce ideas off of. So thank you, Commissioner.
You're
I
welcome.
think
Yeah,
that's
and I echo
a nice
that.
enhancement.
I mean, you've developed an extraordinary expertise on this subject.
Not really.
And, we're just
I'm
going to
working
keep
on it.
making use of you in that regard.
I'm working on it.
Well, it's a
Got a
great
long way to
benefit.
go. Thank you.
Another update from you, Steve, I believe, on the Peace Pole and the Trimpen sculpture, if you would, please, on repairs.
But before you go to that, what about the burger, Ojai Burger? They don't qualify?
Excuse me, that's not on the agenda, so.
Yeah, it's update on project subject, and I'm asking if
Oh,
it's
I see.
subject.
I will check with community development on
Okay,
that.
so fine. And then the other one, would you please check also, but I see that they have broken ground, the winery. That's got to be over 300,000, that winery. You know the one on Ojai Avenue?
I will find out.
Okay, thank you. Because if they've broken ground, they're out of compliance. Just saying. It's
All
my
right.
job.
Peace Pole and Trimpen Arch, please.
So we had some presumably vandalism to the peace pole. One of the ceramic doves got broken. The artist, Richard Franklin, has happily volunteered to make the repairs, and we were able to give him all the pieces, which is good. And he seemed very optimistic that he could put it all back together again. So there we go. So Humpty Dumpty will be back together, and so unfortunately that did occur. So we're down one dove, but you know, as we talked about during the dedication, you know, maintaining peace is a continuous process, and so I think this is just mimicking that. So we'll get peace restored. So I expect that back fairly soon. But again, we just gave it to Mr. Franklin a week or so ago. But I expect that should be back whole and together pretty soon. And then on the Trimpen sculpture, again, we've continued to have vandalism issues with that piece. And fortunately, it has not been to you know, the musical components, for lack of a better term, or the structure itself. The problem that we've had, and we've seen this repeatedly, is people vandalizing the sensor. So the last occurrence, somebody actually ripped the sensor apart. It's scheduled to be fixed next Tuesday. And so I anticipate it. Hopefully, we'll get it done on that time. We've also made contact with Trimpen, and he's helped us with that. So one of our public works staff is going to be working on that next week, and he's confident he should be able to get that one back together and operating as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or remarks regarding this?
I have a question. Can you put a cage over the sensor so they can't damage the sensor? Or do something? I mean, I can't believe we have to do this in Ojai, but.
Yes, I did speak to Mr. Hahn about that, and I'm sorry, at the top of my head, I can't remember what we had talked about in terms of trying to make that a little bit better. But I'll follow up with him and have that conversation. I'm sorry, I just can't recall off the top of my head, but we did talk about that. You know, how do we get it so that somebody just can't get up there and yank on this thing and pull it apart?
I have a question.
Might be a liability issue there.
Is it happening because it's a disturbance, or is it, or is it like people who live near there, or is it people who play tennis
I hesitate
there?
to say. It could be a combination of things. We have a lot of vandalism in that park, and it's certainly not related to the, I don't think the, the doors and the benches and things make a lot of noise, and yet those get vandalized too.
Yeah.
So certainly, I mean, clearly, I think it would be naive to say that certainly when we first installed the piece, we were getting complaints about the noise, and of course we addressed that and tried to tone it down, I think, quite a bit. I think some of that we saw was people trying to affect the sensor. We saw everything from people shoving a piece of paper in there or whatnot, obviously with the idea to try to stop it from making noise. But it's hard to differentiate between just somebody was trying to purposefully do something so that it wouldn't work, or just just vandalism, right? Mindless vandalism. I guess it's all pretty mindless.
Okay, anything else from the Public Art Committee before we move on? Okay, we'll move on to item C, which is the Public Relations Committee. This is on the agenda because there's been some considerable discussion about how public relations is generated and disseminated. Whether committee chairs should generate and disseminate information, or whether it should go through the Public Relations Committee, whether or not it needs to be vetted by our able staff, Mr. McCleary. So, as I said, there's been considerable discussion, and I'm going to call on Mark, who's come up essentially with a proposal for how we might operate in the future.
My thought would be that I think it makes the most sense for everything to flow, just from a management point of view, to keep your arms around it as a commission, for everything to flow through the PR committee. And currently, that would be me in terms of writing press releases. And then to Steve, I assume, Steve, that it's sort of a city requirement that you and or the staff put out the releases. There's no way around that.
Well, I don't want to say there's no way around that, but we would not recommend changing that process.
So what I would say would be that I think the people, obviously the committee chairs and the committees in general know what their requirements are. They know what's coming up. They know they have the information relevant to that. I would say anybody who wants to put that in the form of a draft and send it to me, that's fine with me. I would exercise the right to vet it, but I would work with whoever wrote it as opposed to just changing it and sending it on. But I also will write from scratch, well, based on, not from scratch, but based on the information. But that information should come from the committees. And I expect, is that more or less what's been happening? I mean, I'm all sort of new at this. Linda?
Well, when I took over, I just got to talk into this. We there's been some changes, but we had developed a calendar also of events that needed press releases, which I think I gave you when you took over. And our procedure before that was that we generated the press releases, then we sent them to Steve to look over, and then he would release them. But the only exception to that was the gallery committee, which tended to they did their own press releases. They had wanted to do that in the past. Now, when Heather took over, she said she didn't want to, so that came back to the press release people again, came back to the communications, public relations committee, which I kind of feel like that's what the committee's for. So, you're the chair, so. And I can help with releases too at some point, but right now I'm kind of crazy, like we talked about. But I just think it's a good idea to have it come through the committee.
Oh, I agree. But again, I don't see why someone who wants to write the release, as long as it came to me and I could, we could vet it, make sure it's got what releases need as per the PR pros that we are. And then, of course, it goes on for Steve for further vetting and out into the great world. So really, to me, that would be a way for both these things to function sort of simultaneously. If you want to write a release, write it, but, pass it through me on the way to Steve. And I may want to make sure I may just have some thoughts about it, which I would share back with the person. I wouldn't just, arbitrarily change anything.
Yeah, I think when I came on board, that was kind of the understanding that I would take that up because people didn't have the time to do that or didn't have the skills or didn't want to do it. So that was one of the main things that I did as chair, or our committee did.
Well, here I am.
There's another factor that comes into play in my mind, in addition to the value of having all the information flow through and be vetted or adapted or in some way refined perhaps by a experienced professional journalist who chairs the committee. It also means that the flow of information from the commission will be modulated so that the limited news sources that we have aren't suddenly blasted with 3 news releases in 1 week or 3 in a month or whatever, but rather so that the news releases can be scheduled and released in a way that takes into account the peculiarities of the media available to us, but also really does it in a way that's sensitive to the fact that they're not going to print a whole bunch of stuff in a short order of time. And that, I think, is critical because we have so much information going out because we are generating public projects that I think it's really important that the flow of information be very carefully developed. So I would entirely support what you're proposing. Other comments? Okay, not hearing any other comments, then that will be our policy from now on, that committee chairs are responsible for getting information to the Public Relations Committee, either in the form of a draft or just basic information, and the PR committee, chaired by Mark, will take it from there. In a timely manner. That goes without saying.
If I could, Commissioner
Yes.
Chair, and just to communicate in terms of my end on it, generally I always do my best to try and turn these things around quickly, but I'm not always able, like if I get something that day or the day before, to always be able to get to it. Sometimes it's tough just with the schedule or whatnot, and I'm not here on Monday, so just keep that in mind. If you can give me a couple of working days, or let me know, hey, Steve, it's going to come on Tuesday, and could you try to work something in your schedule and be ready for it, and that way I can at least work around it. So
Again, I think that's much more likely to happen with this sort of focused approach, so I think that can be taken into account. All right, let's move on to other committee reports. The Art Acquisitions Committee. Yes.
I really don't have a report. I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with the museum discussion. I think we need to make a decision about what's going on with that before
Right.
we make any more acquisitions. And the show looks beautiful, you guys. You did a great job.
It does.
Thank you.
It does. All right, the Awards Committee, we of course have the presentation of the Lifetime Achievement Award to Jimmy Cleary at the next City Council meeting. Is that correct?
correct,
That's
Tuesday, May
Tuesday,
26th.
May 26th at 7 o'clock, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Do they tend to do that first off? I can't remember how
Yes.
this works.
Yeah, it's very early in the agenda. It'll be before they get into the discussion and business
Right.
items, so,
Not that that would affect my decision to attend.
of course not.
But do what you can to spread the word to friends and neighbors and other artists. It's an important event. It's at 7 o'clock, and I think it would be great to have as many artists here as possible to celebrate Jimmy Cleary and his achievement. The Arts Education Committee, Bobby.
Okay. Well, as you're probably all aware, the Playhouse is still not moving forward very rapidly. And that, of course, affects our Arts 21 program, because that would be our venue. So I'm not even feeling, or none of us are feeling very positive about a fall launch. So because of this, the committee decided that we really do need to look at some other options of how we can be involved in the community. And of course, this segues right into this wonderful relationship that we seem to be nurturing with the museum, and we don't really want to implement anything until we are sure where that's going and what's happening. However, some wonderful ideas were discussed, things like developing, and this is the biggest idea that came out of our committee meeting, thanks to Michael, and this is to develop books on the art on Ojai, and there could be a series of these books, one on the architecture, one on public art, one on photography. You could have all kinds of different books, and they could be somewhat, a blended committee. So some of the people are from the Art Commission, some of the people are people in the community who've done this type of thing, maybe some people from the museum, and we're lucky because we do have a team of really talented people to draw on that we hopefully could bring together to do this. And of course, we probably wouldn't even budget anything like this until, 2016, since it's too late for 2015's budget. And that gives us enough time to do things that are very important in planning something like this, such as putting together a budget, and as I said, putting together the team that's going to produce it, putting together the work that would be included in it, how we would sell it, how we would distribute it. There's a lot of pieces that go into a project of this size. However, it seems like it could be a very wonderful project, and so we really want to pursue this once we know, as I said, what's going on with the relationship with the museum. So that is the biggest thing that came out of our committee meeting. And of course, we did knock around other ideas such as, gee, should we still do things like lectures on public art and what it is? And we feel that right now the museum is doing this wonderful series on Saturdays, and we really don't want to compete with them. If anything, we want to, again, partner with them. So much is hinging on what's coming down with this relationship. So stay tuned. I think there's some exciting things to come.
Okay, questions, comments? Thank you.
Can I ask one question,
Yeah.
quick question? Did you guys bring up classes too? Because I know the museum in Santa Barbara gives arts classes and has arts education that way too, so that could be
No.
a fun thing too.
No, we didn't at this point.
If we have
Add
a
it to
place
our
to
list.
give them.
Okay.
We switching hats briefly to my museum board hat. That thought is percolating down the street as well. So I think there's definite synergies there.
Yeah, and that's exactly the word, I think, the synergy that can happen with the relationship between the City Arts Commission and the City Museum is really powerful in potential, I think. Okay, we'll move on to the Artist Mentor Program. As you know, we have a fine array of artists who have agreed to serve in the program, and we have received applications from, as I recall, 13 or 14 students. We've had a meeting to vet those applications, and in the coming week, we will be setting up some interviews for the students who've applied to work with Vera Long, because there are several who are interested. And we're also going to be setting up interviews for the students who are interested in working with Smitty West. We have 2 applicants who are interested in working with Catherine Ann Jones. She's expressed a strong interest in participating in this process, so we're going to be forwarding those 2 student applications to her for her input before we determine. But I think we're on schedule so that by the end of this month, we will have chosen the interns who are going to be working with the artists, and the summer project will begin. And we'll see the fruits of all that next November.
So just 3 then artists, or?
No, there are 5 altogether. Let me see if I
So
can remember now.
Vera,
Vera, Catherine
Scott,
Ann Jones,
Catherine.
Scott. We also have a student who's interested in working with Susan Steinmuller-Eimann.
Oh, Susan.
And we think we might have a possibility of pointing a student towards working with Norman Clayton. That is a more difficult sell because students, I don't think, understand letterpress printing as an art form.
Geez, I would think that people would really be into that.
Well, you would think so, but so we're
They might not
working
even
on-
know what that is.
Well, I think they know what it is in the roughest term, but they don't know how to move from putting pieces of lead and printing with ink on a printing press. Where does the art form come in? Well, it's the design and all of those elements that make the work extraordinary.
Have you talked to the English classes?
Oh, Linda, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Have you talked to like the literature classes and stuff?
Yes,
We have an
that's why
interest.
we have students applying to work with Catherine Ann Jones in writing. But yeah, Bobby?
I actually spoke with Heather Farley's graphics classes, went to all of them, and I also went to Kate Thomas's art classes and did a little mini lecture on what letterpress was or is, so that the students would understand. And I was hoping we'd have a better response, but sadly we didn't.
Can we leave that application open for a while longer?
We could do that, yeah, except we're operating with a clear set of guidelines and requirements for the students to apply and to meet deadlines and to submit a completed application. And in fairness to those who've done that,
Yeah.
we're reluctant to just sort of
It's
open
tough.
it to
Yeah.
others. It's part of their learning experience after all, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I sure would like to see that go.
Well, we would too, so
Yeah.
we're working
So it's
on
an
it.
exciting one.
We're confident that it will.
How about the spoken word people? Did you talk to anybody at Bart's where they used to have a spoken word? Maybe some of those people would be interested.
You got to speak into your microphone, Linda.
The spoken word, you know, they did a lot of spoken word and.
Yeah, I didn't, but as Michael said, now I think it's
too late?
closed. Yeah, I mean, and I agree that it's really not fair to all those who did really hustle and get their applications completed in on time to all of a sudden start again. Yeah.
So if you don't have someone for that fifth artist, then would you look differently at the money that's awarded that has been set aside?
No, I don't think so, because the fifth artist is funded by the Ojai Education Foundation, you may remember. So I think what we would do is tell them that as much as we appreciate their support, we weren't able to use it this year. Okay. Well, we're still working on it. We're
I thought you said it was closed.
we have students who've applied that we think we might be able to bend in that direction. Let's put it that way. Little education, redirect their focus, yes.
I think it would be exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, City Gallery Committee, congratulations, first of all, for the show and the reception tonight. It was great.
That was fun. Yeah, it was fun. Well, so this show is coming down, and we are actually, the next show is going to be the OSA Scholarship with the students from that, and that is going to open, well, the show will be up on the 1st of June, correct?
Right.
And the reception's going to be the 6th. Is that a Friday?
That's a Saturday.
Oh, Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay, so June 6th is the reception.
Time?
4 to 6.
4 to 6.
How long will it be there for?
And it
2
closes, it closes on the 14th of,
August?
August.
yeah, sorry, I was like,
right.
yes. Yes, and so, and I want to thank everyone for coming out for the reception tonight. I thought it was actually well attended, and I thought it was fun.
Wonderful.
And the next, and also, we are moving along with the lighting. Roger just handed me the budget for that, and it's pretty much coming in $3.99 over what we have in our kitty right now. So, we'll be looking for donations.
We'll cover it.
Everybody digging their
It's tax
Yeah,
deductible, going once, going twice. So, yeah, I guess we're moving along with that. And that is without labor, correct?
Right. What we're hoping to do is order these materials, and I'll have a special one for Steve to have, ordering it off of this year's budget, and then we have budgeted a similar amount for next year, which would be the labor part. So we're hoping that as soon as materials get in, we'll be on the new budget and we can do that. Or it may be that the city has electricians that can do it also, which might end up saving some money too. So that's it.
Okay. Anything else from that committee? Then we can move to the Art Grants Committee.
Excuse me, Chair Addison.
Yes.
Did we add another item under that committee? Did you want the report on the insurance?
Yes, I did. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was there. Please. This is an issue that was brought to my attention by Council Member Wyrick, who raised the question of, is the city art collection insured? And if so, how? And so I asked Steve if he would give us a report on that.
So I'm happy to report that, yes, it is. And every year we review that schedule. So as I started to think about this a little bit more, I maybe took it to the next level and wanted to throw this out there. So what we have, and I inherited this program 2-3 years ago, and basically what we provide to our insurance authority is the listing of property, and we provide them what the value is. So when I inherited the program, it's been pretty simple. As we've acquired things, I've simply just adjusted that to increase it based on either the appraised value that we received on a donation or what we purchased it for. I think the question that I have, and I suspect that maybe the Arts Commission may as well, would be, what all is in that value, and I don't know that I could ever answer that question because I have no idea how it was built over the years. So what I think would be worth doing would be to more or less do a audit, so to speak, of the city's permanent collection to try to get, again, a value there that we are comfortable with. Because if we have indeed $200,000 worth of art in the permanent collection, then we should be declaring that value in our insurance. I think the issue, if we were to have damage to a couple of arts pieces, I don't think there would be any problem in terms of coming in there and saying, this piece has been damaged, this piece has been damaged, here's the values. The issue would be obviously if we were in a total loss type situation and suddenly we're going, well, we've lost $300,000 worth of public art, but we only had it $135,000 insured. So that would be my recommendation going forward. I certainly do not have the expertise to do that, any type of appraisal. So I would, that's my suggestion to the Arts Commission. I'm looking for any recommendations or further thoughts.
Well, I would like to ask the City Gallery Committee, who's responsible for the collection essentially, to work with Steve and find out what information we have about what's in the collection. By information, I mean value. But are there pieces in the collection that we don't have any value?
It's really Acquisitions Committee that has that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, Michael, but I thought.
No, but you're right, that's more appropriate,
Yeah,
of
it's
course.
Acquisitions.
Yeah, it's the Acquisitions
I
Committee.
think we already did this a while back.
We
Mimi
may
and
have.
Barbara and all, yeah, I think they already did it.
Yes,
so it
I
should
gave
be-
materials to Pamela. Did she pass them on to, pass them on to you, Linda?
Gave me, I think,
Because
yes.
there was a beginning of a whole thing, and I have also, call me, because I also have a lot of things, in fact, they're in your handbook.
They're right here.
Yeah,
Art
but I don't know
value.
if the amounts are there. Are the amounts
Art
there?
value.
Oh,
I
good.
don't know if it's, some of this doesn't have a value on it, though.
Oh, well, then we already may have a lot of the
There,
information.
there's
then.
some
Here.
digging to do,
Municipal art.
to find it all out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the work to be done
It's a
then,
beginning.
is to review what
So,
information
I'll
we
go
have
over
and
this
then go
and-
further.
And I have that on my computer if you want me to send you a hard copy, Linda.
I may.
If you want to have a digital copy, I have this on my computer. Just remind me.
I have this, too.
Okay, but I mean with the amounts.
Okay,
that piece.
so
Okay, we'll email.
Okay, Acquisitions Committee then, appropriately,
Okay.
we'll move forward with this, okay?
This is,
Was there a limit to our insurance coverage, or,
No.
so it's kind of open? Like there's no upper threshold of,
I remember.
right,
Not that I'm aware of.
okay.
We've got, I don't think there's any grand total that we have to stay under.
Well, maybe that's something that could be found out as well.
Sure.
At any rate, working with the
Don't think
committee,
so.
we can go forward and clarify this. All right, now we can move to the Arts Grants Committee. Roger, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, actually, we're gearing up next month for making revisions and then starting the whole process over again. So I'll be calling a meeting sometime before the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we turn to Mr. McClary for the report on expenditures to date and et cetera.
Well, as is not too unusual, it's getting towards the end of the fiscal year, and so now we're getting busy trying to spend a bunch of money, which is good. There was no funds that we've spent in the last month, so there was no change to that report. Obviously, we're going to be moving forward with the purchases on the lights for the gallery, so I would expect that $1,500 to be moving out of there before the end of June. Artist student mentor, obviously that's already been spoken for that. Art acquisitions, there's still money in there, so I think y'all are working on that.
Could be.
And then on the, sorry, I'm stopping here for a second because I didn't remember that we had already spent the money in awards. I wonder if that's a mistake.
thought we spent our money in acquisitions.
I don't think we did in acquisitions, but what did we spend our money in awards for? I have to go back and check.
A plaque for the lifetime?
Huh, no, because we're working on that right now, so I'll have to go back. Well, no, this,
We've got the Harveys. We framed the,
Did we do one, Linda, for,
that was the previous year.
you know, the Hope Fraser one?
poster we did. The big,
We're talking about two different things. Steve.
And Susan Amend, I think, didn't she get a brass plaque?
oh, you're talking
over
Yeah,
there?
I'll go back and check on the awards there. I'm a little mystified on that. I didn't think we had zeroed that out. $3,500.
I thought we spent it.
Oh, you get to go shopping.
I don't think so.
Quickly.
Oh, my gosh. I have to look at
Soon.
our list. I have to look at our list, yeah. We'll have to,
Okay, so let's be sure that we have a report at the next committee meeting on what the acquisitions committee is going to recommend, right?
Oh, yeah.
Pronto.
I haven't
Right.
even looked at this list yet.
Okay, so we have next a discussion of the recommended Arts Commission budget.
Right, so just to give you an update on where we are with the city budget process, the city manager on May 12th passed out the draft budget to the city council. And then we have our first budget workshop will proceed, our first meeting in June. I want to say that's June 9th, but, well, check my calendar here. At that meeting, that'd be the time that we're asking for presentations to be made to the city council from commissions or the public or other entities that are seeking city funds. So it would be ideal if the commission can either finalize its request tonight or certainly no later than the June 9th city council meeting, where again, we ask you to make that.
Just to review the budget that I proposed last time, and I'll go through this quickly. Yes.
Before you do that, could I donate from this year's Public Art Committee budget the $3 and whatever cents that Roger needs for City Gallery? Because we have money there that I don't know what it's going to get spent on at this point.
I think we can do that
Can we do
without a
that?
motion, can't we?
Yeah, we could find another source of funds even outside of the Arts
Okay.
Commission. if
And
necessary.
any other,
That would-
if
we
anybody
call that
needs money.
De minimis, so, yeah.
So going back to the proposed budget for 2015-16, we proposed $20,000 for grants, $1,000 for public art, awards slightly more than last year, and we didn't finalize a number on that. Steve, I think we could give you permission to just adjust that slightly, if you would, please. Arts education, $2,000 to move forward with the programs of the sort that Bobby is proposing. Student mentor program, we would like to reach the goal of city funding for 5 pairs of mentors, and that's at one, that would be $6,250 there. Acquisitions, we proposed $5,000. The lighting for the city gallery is a figure you'll have to get from Roger for that.
And what did you say grants was?
Grants, we proposed $20,000, which is an increase from this year's $18,000. And our feeling was
Well, I
that
have done
that's
15,200, it was 18.
Was it 15? I'm sorry. I don't have that number in front of
We
me.
just went up, yeah.
It was 15.2, and more was added to it.
That's right. Yeah, we
From other
adjusted the
years,
budget
yeah.
in mid-year, so we did have 18.
And did you did you say the budget from Invitational Gallery, you're not sure of that one yet?
The city gallery, we need to get the figure from Roger
Okay.
that he's estimating for the lighting.
Well, we were
Installation.
figuring the 1,500 again. to
Okay,
cover
then
that.
that's the
1,500.
number then.
And what was awards, Michael? I'm sorry, I just was going a little fast for me.
Awards, we discussed it in terms of being slightly more than last year, but that's just because plaques and things like that are slightly more expensive. And I don't remember what we had budgeted for this year. Steve, do you have that number in front of you for awards?
I think we're still fine with the 500.
Then we can leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay. And arts, education, Bobby, what was that?
$2,000.
But I have a question. So what we're looking at, oops, it just went off my screen.
Yeah.
That has none of those numbers reflected in the left-hand column, what is that reflecting?
So that was what was budgeted in the current year?
So you have to write it in under proposed
Oh,
amount.
I see, I see, I see,
Right,
okay.
right.
Sorry for the confusion.
So we put the arts education budget from last year into the grants.
Yes.
So,
Coming year, I don't want zero.
Right.
No,
right.
that's why
no,
we're
it says
proposing
$2,000.
$2,000.
so
yeah.
the Public Art Committee does not need 1,000, that can go down to 500?
Okay, I think we bumped that up because we know that you're going to be moving towards hiring consultants and things of that
Can we-
sort.
Let me ask a question. Can that money be used for a consultant?
We can use it for whatever we want, right?
I'm sorry, I was focused on
Could-
something else, I
Could the public
apologize.
art budget, the committee budget, be used for funding or paying for an art consultant?
For what purpose?
For, let's say, having an art consultant for the playground, or having an art consultant for a possible playhouse or side of the wall that Linda was talking about, for a public art project.
You could, yeah.
So it could, it would be
Absolutely.
legitimate? All right, then let's leave it there.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. In fact, I'd like it to be more in that case, but.
Well, I think we're pushing the envelope as it is in a number of other important areas to us, and I suspect that the public art projects are going to
Okay.
take not just 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a couple of
yeah, I
years.
think you're right.
So I think we can move in that direction.
Just a clarification,
Yeah.
I believe on the arts grants for this fiscal year, we had originally budgeted 13,000, and then we took 1,500 from Arts Ojai.
That's
and-
right.
And 700 from the 2014 program that was returned.
Uh-huh.
And added that 2,200 to the 13 to get to the 15,200.
That's exactly right.
I believe so.
And then we added to that, did we not?
Yes,
Did we
the
not?
arts
Yeah,
education.
the arts education.
Oh, I see what you're saying. And see, I don't consider that city money, so it doesn't, but understood.
All right.
I understand where you're coming from.
All right. No.
So I didn't hear that, Linda, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just asking.
Oh, okay. So are you going to ask, or rather, Mark, are you going to ask for money for public relations?
I am not.
You're not? Zero? Okay.
We wanted our cards.
That's not necessary.
So I apologize, Chair Addison, could you go through those numbers again
Again,
one more
yes.
time? I know we had 20,000 for
Grants,
arts grants.
20,000,
Thank
public
you.
art, 1,000. Awards, we've decided we would keep the same. Arts education, 2,000. The student mentor program, 6,250, funding 5 pairs. Acquisitions, 5,000. City gallery, 1,500. Copier costs, 200.
I'm sorry, the only one I didn't catch there was the artist student mentor. I apologize.
6,250.
So we're talking a total of, who's got a total? I'm coming like 36,000 something.
36,450. We have someone with a calculator in the house.
I could be wrong, but.
Thank you.
So I don't know if it's helpful to, I just kind of will share that when I presented the budget to city council the last time, that, we didn't get the full budget that we had presented, and that we got close, but we didn't get it. And one of the comments that came from city council was that it was so much more than it had been the year before. So I just want to bring that to mind for whatever it's worth.
I'm aware of that, but I feel that a couple of factors work in our favor, and I would not be unduly surprised if we did not get everything we requested. But at the same time, the economy certainly has improved to the point where the city does have more budgetary flexibility. And I also think that there's a lot to be said for the fact that this commission is working vigorously and creatively on projects that really have public benefit. So those are the arguments that I'll make in any event, and we'll see what happens, right?
I come up with the same total as the council member.
Thank you. Okay.
I would like to bring up another budget thing. At our last meeting that we had last month, we had Anka Colbert gave a presentation on her Arts About Town.
Mm-hmm.
And I had asked that we bring it up for discussion as an agenda item at the commission at the next meeting. And I don't see that it got on it, but this seems like an appropriate place for that.
It's certainly a place we could talk because it is a budgetary issue.
Yes.
So that's appropriate.
Would that be a place for a public relations figure, that would fit under that? Because it's a reach out to the public. What do you think?
I have to be honest, and I say this with all due respect to Anka, and Anka knows that I value what she does, but I think we need to be very careful before we, outside of grant guidelines or anything of that order, fund something that is essentially a private commercial enterprise. I think on that basis, we need to be very, very careful. What I would urge is that Anka enter the fray with others and apply for a grant in our next grant cycle, and that in that context, I think it would be absolutely valid and appropriate. And should a grant be approved in that context, and that in turn would serve as an exemplar and could perhaps lead to something more permanent, if you will. But that certainly is my opinion, and I offer that as an opinion. Any other discussion? Okay. We seem to have consensus on that. All right. Any other items about the budget?
Woo!
Okay. There was some discussion of an allocation of funds for a website and for Arts Ojai business cards, and we don't have that in the budget. Pardon?
For the website, we don't need anything.
Okay.
I mean, do we?
I didn't think we did. I thought it was the business cards that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was just a couple $100.
All right, well, let's put off the question of business cards and let's table that until our next meeting, okay? It's getting late and that's an important issue, so let's save that for debate and discussion at our next meeting. Let's move to a staff liaison report. Mr. McClary, if you have anything further?
Just a couple of announcements. Very busy week next week with City Council on Tuesday. As Mr. Grant mentioned, Wednesday we have the workshop on the design input for the Libby Park playground. And then following up that Thursday, and then the next night, Thursday at 6:30, they're also back at the Ojai Women's Club where they'll be discussing that the concept at that point. Also that night, here's my list. Just you may be of interest. Excuse me. Also on May 27th, Wednesday, just so that you're aware, Golden State Water is holding a public outreach meeting to talk about the drought restrictions and the mandated water rationing and restrictions. So just that you and the public are aware, that's going to be happening at the American Legion Hall at 843 East Ojai at 6 p.m. So City Council Tuesday, Design Build Workshop Wednesday, Golden State Water meeting Wednesday, and Thursday, again, the rollout on the Community Design Build. And then on Saturday, hopefully you all saw the invitation to the first neighborhood planning workshop, which is going to be on Saturday, May the 30th, at the Boyd Center at Sarzati Park from 9 a.m. to noon. All commissions are being invited so that they can participate in that meeting, and it will be noticed as a joint meeting of the City Council and all the various members of the commission. You don't need to have a majority there, but again, it's just being noticed so that commissioners can show up and speak and participate, and we won't have a Brown Act issue there. So other than that, I don't have anything else to announce at this time. We're working on the award for Tuesday. That's been ordered, so we have that in well, we don't have it in hand yet, but we will. It's been ordered. And then we're also the plaque, which normally is sitting on that wall, which is our perpetual plaque for the Lifetime Achievement in the Arts Award. You've given out so many awards, and we have so many people worthy of the Lifetime Achievement Award that we've run out of space. So we're working on some options to either extend that plaque or basically to extend that plaque. So we're working on making that happen too. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. A lot happening, a lot happening. Commissioner comments. Ms. Golden?
I will pass to Roger.
Mr. Conrad? Ms. Stilbo?
I'll pass
Yes?
I will not pass.
Ah,
Go, Mark.
I've taken a note of three, count them three, press release opportunities/necessities all coming at the end of the month. I count Pam Grau painting will go up on May 30th. The end of the month, the mentees will be chosen. And a new show will be up on June 1st, and there'll be a reception on the 6th. So I'll take care of the Pam Grau thing, but the other two, it's only 2 weeks or so. So
we'll get the
let's
info
get
to
that
you
information
right
to
away.
me.
Right away.
I may have to space one of them out just to avoid overwhelming the OVN. Thank you all.
Well, actually, the Ojai studio artists are handling publicity for their show. So, yeah, that'll be here. They did the same thing at the museum, too. They pretty much handle the publicity.
God bless them. All right, so two.
Yeah, right.
Good, okay. Well, I just want to add what you all know, and that is that our little ad hoc committee has met with Tony Thatcher, and we're going to be continuing those discussions about the potential liaison with the Ojai Museum. I think this is a very exciting prospect that we're working on. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's certainly going forward. We have a very patient, oh, Bobby, I'm sorry.
I pass anyway.
I'm sorry. We have a patient council member with us. Councilman Haney, would you like to address the commission? We'd appreciate that.
Good evening. And Bobby, I'm surprised you sat there all evening as long as I have, and you haven't really talked a lot. I figured you'd at least want to stretch here. So two things come to mind. I kept hearing the word museum tonight, and I applaud you all for that goal of creating that synergy with the museum and the arts in this community. I just think it's you're on the right path. That's my take on that. So, and I heard it 3 or 4 times tonight in each of your committees. So obviously you're all focused and heading that way. Historical, cultural, and arts center. Doesn't that sound nice? Historical for our preservation, because you're all a part of that, and cultural because of how they all play together, and obviously the arts community in this valley. So I was sitting there the whole evening, and Steve's probably, his heart's already beating because mine is too, but when you throw something like that out there, it's just interesting that we don't have one. So I wanted to plant that seed into your, yeah, Linda. Yeah.
We do have an arts center in town. It's the oldest nonprofit, continuing operating all volunteer organization in California. I just had to bring that up. It's celebrating 76 years this year, and it's on Montgomery Street, just so you know.
Right. Well, I'm talking about how we bring the, all three of those factors together and try to put them under one roof and try to really share the wealth of this community. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is what Michael and I were talking about this evening, and I hope you come to the next city council meeting and share
I will.
about art and its true meaning. Because for some of us, when I think of art, I think of what I see. And Michael was sharing with me some of the his program with the 5 kids, and how there's writers and there's there's all different types of art. And I just from a landscape contractor, it's again, I deal in art myself, but I have a tendency to think that art is only that what I see on a picture versus art that is all around us and in us. So with that, thank you. Great meeting. Enjoyed it. Take care.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your being with us.
Yeah.
And that, ladies and gentlemen,
I think, Mr. Chair, you wanted to talk about the June meeting schedule?
oh yes, I did want to talk about the June meeting schedule. I unfortunately have to be in Northern California on our scheduled date, which is the
June 18th.
June 18th. So Steve has kindly come up with a couple of optional possibilities.
Yay.
Would you prefer us to discuss that now, or should we circulate a memo by email? Discuss? Okay, let's get her done.
Okay. Well, one obvious, you can't go the week earlier because that Thursday is taken. I'm just starting with Thursday just because people are used to seeing you on Thursdays, and sometimes that works better with people's schedules. The following Thursday, June 25th, there's nothing scheduled here, so that would be a date. If you want to cancel your regular meeting and do a special meeting on June 25th, you could do that. Other than that, I could go through some other options.
How do we stand on June 25th?
I can.
Yes?
I think so.
Roger?
Right.
Heather?
I actually, that would be a museum board meeting. They run from 5, I mean, I could join in mid-meeting. I mean, that would, if everyone else could make it, I would just join
Okay.
when I could.
How about,
When do they usually run, from 5 to 1?
Oh, 5 to 7.
okay, so we'd just be barely underway.
Or you could start your
We could
special
start later.
meeting
We
at
could start at 7.
You could.
It's a special meeting. How does
Right.
everybody
The only-
feel about that?
The only drawback to that would be if people are used to seeing it at 6:30, but they would already have to be on the ball because it's a
Exactly.
regular,
Yeah,
a regular
that way we
meeting
get
date.
dinner.
Yeah, whatever the commission's pleasure.
Fine with me.
Okay,
Get dinner.
7 o'clock on the 25th of June.
That's fine with me.
All right?
Will you send a memo of
We will send out a memo that the meeting in June is on the 25th at 7 o'clock. And I appreciate your forbearance. No, the music festival is long over, yeah.
That's right. Good point.
Ladies and gents, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Good meeting, good meeting.
Yeah, we're a major PR effort, so we can put these to good use. Our commissioners out there.
It's the cities.
So,
Putting it in the city, get collection.
let me turn off the recorder here.
You can't have it. It's that simple.
Going out.
Honey, we can do a song and dance and still be on the air. So I have to look at our list of